fire departments. That was another thing that used to be done, right? So we had to go on Tuesday. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to you. Welcome to those in the gallery. Nice to see you this morning. Welcome, Council. I'd like to call to order this Development Planning Services Committee meeting of Monday, December the 3rd, 2018. You have your agenda in front of you. Is there any additions to the agenda? Thank you. Is there any declaration of interest? Okay. Seeing none, we'll start with our first item under reports, 5.1. CRS-4, Buddy's Cannabis Dispensary, 5390 50th Street Northeast Cannabis Retail Store. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Flynn, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that Council approve application CRS-4 and that Council consider its resolution with respect to the following. Provincial Cannabis Retail Store Referral 1119, Zoning Bylaw 2303 and City Policy 3.20. Public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of December 10th, 2018, and the impact of the application on the community.
Thank you. Could I ask the Director of Development Services to explain the proposal, please?
Your Worship, the property in question is the location of the Canoe Village Market, owned by Jeff Phillips, the applicant, and Mr. Phillips would like to locate a cannabis retail store within the existing store. The property is located in Canoe at the intersection of 50th Street and Canoe Beach Drive. The city's policy number 320, adopted earlier this year, supports the location of a store, a cannabis retail store in the Canoe area. And that's mentioned in under section D of the policy, location preference criteria. The zoning of the property is C1, neighborhood commercial, which allows the use of a convenience store. And similar to a retail store, the zoning supports the proposed use. And there's not really a lot to say about this other than it meets the policy, the zoning, and the city's official community plan. We did add another fourth item to the resolution regarding community impact, and that's because the province's liquor cannabis regulation branch is asking for a statement from council on the impact of a business like this in the community. They asked for that for the third application. They didn't ask for it for the first one that they approved, so it was a bit of a change in what they wanted. So we have added it to the motion.
Great, thank you. Thanks for explaining that. Jeff, did you want to come forward and talk to us about your application? Welcome to council.
Thank you. Just to answer any questions, I guess, you might have.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Phillips this morning? That was pretty easy so far? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, that's it.
Yep, we might ask you back. We'll see. Council, do you have any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will call the question. Oh. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks through you, Mayor Harrison. To staff, could I hear a little bit more what a community impact statement means and what is the breadth of commentary that's expected?
Your question is the same question I had. Basically, they want a statement saying that you have considered the application with respect to the impact on the community. It's pretty wide.
Okay. So it's just essentially an addendum to acceptance in the first place?
Yes, and when I explained with the first CRS-1 application that proposal, I'm just using this as an example, that proposal met our official community plan, it met the zoning bylaw, There was public input. We advertised that application in the newspaper as we did this application under review right now. We received no public input on that first application. There was no criteria provided to me on what they're looking for, but they want council to acknowledge that there's no community impact.
Okay, I think I understand that. Through you, your worship, to staff, will we have a template for a suggested community impact statement by the time we meet on the 10th?
No.
That'll be up to us to craft that then?
You just have to basically, if you pass a motion as presented, it's pretty much the same as a liquor licensing statement. We have no criteria for that either. It's just in the motion.
Okay, I will think about that a little bit more. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
realize this is at the provincial level, not at the staff level, without a doubt. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lavery. It seems to me the fact that we're holding a hearing with the public, it's really a given, and they just want it written into the motion. So it doesn't seem to me that we need anything extra added. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. My questions were similar, but my comment would be that if these applications meet all our guidelines and if we have a public hearing, we've done our due diligence with regards to community impact. I find it somewhat ironic that it's been legalized nationally and it's been legalized provincially, and we don't have much to do except dealing with our bylaw, and once our bylaw is approved, now all of a sudden we get asked another question. And I'm quite comfortable saying if it meets our bylaw guidelines and we've had a community input public hearing, that community impact is fine. It seems like a really weird thing to be adding after the fact on, and wasn't there at the start. But I kind of agree with Councillor Lavery. It kind of puts us in a position that seems a little unusual, but if it meets our guidelines, which this does, and we have a public hearing, I think we've done our due diligence.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't want to get too off track on the community impact piece, but I do think it's important to say that as a city, we've agreed for a moderate approach to cannabis retail. And the fact that we have a policy and hearings and an application process shows that we're mindful of impact, and impact can also be a good thing. So I encourage council to remember that by having a legal framework around cannabis and a very enthusiastic business community willing to take the risk, that we recognize that there is going to be an impact and it isn't necessarily going to be negative.
Thank you. Could I just have the administrator just read that fourth point? It's not written on this motion, just so that council's 100% aware of what it says.
Yes, Your Worship. It says, council consider its resolution with respect to the impact of the application on the community.
Okay, so that appears on this motion, and it will appear on the motion at the public hearing, assuming this goes forward. Any other questions around this application? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? It carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move forward to item 5.2, CRS-5, 171-191 Shuswap Street, Operations Limited, Eden, Cannabis Retail Store. I'd ask for the motion.
Moved by Council Lavery, seconded by Council Wallace-Richmond, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that Council approve application CRS-5 and that Council consider its resolution with respect to the following. Retail Store Referral Number 1554, Zoning Bylaw 2303 and City Policy 3.20, public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of December 10, 2018, and the impact of the application on the community.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
Thank you, Worship. The property under application is located at the corner of Shuswap Street and Lakeshore Road, northwest. And the business has had a business license just this past year for a retail store. The property is zoned C2, Town Center Commercial, and it is, because this is the third application in the commercial core area, it is supported by the policy, because the policy supports a maximum of 4 stores within the commercial core. And Mr. Jeff Horrocks is representing Eden. Staff recommends support of it. I should mention over the time that it was known that this business was selling cannabis, the city received no complaints, no nuisance complaints. However, there was some concerns expressed by another applicant on the fact that this store was able to operate as a cannabis retail store before the adoption of the Federal Cannabis Act.
Great, thank you, Director of Operations. Just before I ask Mr. Horrocks for input, I do want to remind Council that the provincial direction is that we not be biased either for or against applications, regardless of whether they were open prior to the deadline. Mr. Horrocks, would you like to come forward?
Mr. Horrocks is out of Vancouver, but I'm here to represent for Eden.
Please come forward. If you just give us your name, that would be great.
Absolutely. My name's Clayton Beadle. Morning,
Clayton. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Do you have any input that you would like to talk to us about?
I do not. I appreciate the fact that we won't be held against the company that we operated prior to, as others did as well. I support the application as well, obviously, being with the company. I feel like it's a great location. We've put safety first through our policies and even our infrastructure there. We have 16 cameras in the property. It's a high security environment. We've had a great relationship with all of our neighbors. We were proactive and went out and saw each one of them prior to us opening last November. So I think it's would be great to be approved, and it's the right place. And we've followed the best guidelines that weren't in existence on our own, and we've kind of modeled it to meet the regulations that are in effect now. So.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Is there any questions for Mr. Beadle this morning? Okay, thank you very much. Discussion by council. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to application number 3, CRS-6. 1171-305 BC Limited, Salmon Arm Cannabis, 81 Shuswap Street Northwest, Cannabis Retail Store. We'll hear the motion.
Moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that the Development and Planning Services Committee recommends to Council that Council approve application CRS-6 and that Council consider its resolution with respect to the following: license referral number 1524, zoning bylaw 2303 and policy 3.20. Public notification followed by the holding of a hearing at the regular council meeting of December 10, 2018, and the impact of the application on the community.
Thank you. Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, this property is located also on Shuswap Street at the corner of Hudson Avenue. Formerly, this lease space was the Doughboys Pizzeria. And what's being proposed now is another cannabis retail store. Similar to the previous proposal, the zoning is C2, Town Center Commercial, which allows the use of a retail store. And the OCP supports this type of retail activity. And the applicant is Mark Pugh, who's in attendance today. There's not a lot to say on this one either, because it's supported by the zoning, it's supported by the official community plan, and it's supported by the city policy.
Great, thank you. And this would be the 4th application, if accepted, within the downtown area, right?
Yeah, that is important actually, because after this application, if it is approved, the policy would not support any more stores in the commercial area.
Thank you. would you like to come forward, Mr. Pugh? Good morning, Mark. Thanks for coming and seeing us. Would you like to make any comments about your application?
I don't think so. We did take some time. My partner, Sonny Dollywall, who many of you know, did take some time, met with the neighbors and had a chat with them, and there was no opposition from the neighbors currently.
Great, thank you, and thanks, Sonny, for doing that. Any questions for Mr. Pugh this morning? Okay, you guys are getting off light.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. Any questions for staff or comments? Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick comment. When we were dealing with our proposed bylaw and had the community input, I think one of the concerns was that there could be a whole street of cannabis retailers. What's interesting is we've allowed 4 in the downtown, and it will be interesting if we get a 5th or 6th application for the area that clearly states 4 in the policy. But the market seems to have ensured that we don't have 4 side by side. The 4 that we've approved, or this hasn't been approved, the 4 that we've potentially approved are all separated by a bit of distance and have located throughout the downtown. And I think, as I expected, the market has made sure that it's balanced in the downtown core. So I will vote in support and do not look forward to that 5th if it comes forward.
Great, thanks for your observation there. Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks. I echo what Councillor Flynn has said. We as a community worked on a policy and a set of rules and regulations, and the market has come forward and fulfilled those. We talked about Canoe. We have an application from Canoe. We talked about not doing it up in the North Hub. We declined the North Hub. We talked about the 4 in the core, and now we have 4. So until we see something that's wrong, or when are we planning on reviewing this, or our bylaws, to see if it was a good policy or a bad policy? So we've got 4, we let them open, we see what happens, we let Canoe open, see what happens, and see if there's more of demand or less of demand, or where they'll be spread out, much like other things we do. So I'm happy to approve this one, and then as per our guidelines and policies, hold off and see where it goes from there, and then come back and revisit it in a year or so after opening. I'm not sure when council wants to do that, but I think it's important that we give it a period of time and review what we're doing.
Thank you, Councillor Eliason. I agree. Any other input? All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Just before we adjourn, thank you for attending this morning, and recommend that you do come on December the 10th. We'll have hearings in the evening starting at 7 o'clock. We have a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Wallace Richmond, seconded by Councillor Cannon, that the Development and Planning Services Committee meeting of December 3rd, 2018 be adjourned.
All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you.